themselves away from the imposing language of modern calculus and appreciate what happened in 15th century. They say that discovery of calculus was over. Discovery of calculus was over in 15th century in Kerala, and later, maybe with the help of this, but this being not invention but discovery, simultaneous discovery could also take place. We wouldn't know. But the 5 fundamental theorems were available in Kerala in 15th century, which were made available either with correspondence or independently. They conflicted each other by Leibniz and by Newton. So Newton, Leibniz, Gregory, these are the 3 who presented the series, and this would only mean the discovery of the logic of it, jumping to the tool and then facilitating the tool to understand and measure moving objects. But in the case of Newton, it was an altogether different kind of understanding, because he understood the whole physics in the context of time, space. Time and space initially, and metaphysically in time, space combined. He was able to understand the physics of the whole thing. That kind of understanding you will not find. Physics is absent. There is an amazing kind of completion in Newtonian project. He was talking about the mechanics of the universe and was able to reduce the mechanics of the universe to the micro particle, at that time only atom, the dynamic of the micro type, dynamic of the micro universe, and the dynamic of the macro universe. And then understanding planetary positions and celestial bodies' movements as outward manifestations of physics. That you don't find in the understanding of any of the mathematicians of the period. Viewing from the perspective of historical epistemology, the process was that of an uncritical return to the axiomatic and the traditionally given from the threshold of proof construction shown by Jyeshtadeva. Jyeshtadeva's formula showing a passage to infinity, which facilitates calculation of areas under parabolas, is an essential constituent of the theory of calculus. It is the same formula that contemporary European scholars like Fermat, Pascal, and Wallis also had used. That's why we consider it as a single kind of discovery. The planetary model of Nilaganda and planetary model of Tycho Brahe are one and the same. That's what I just now said. Similarly, it said that Wallis results on continued fractions are identical to those of Bhaskara II. Now, ritual status of mathematics, there is no need of any explanation to an audience like this, that mathematical astronomy being part of Vedic rituals because of the Grahanam question. Vedic Brahmins allowed mathematical study as part of the Vedic studies. With the result, mathematical astronomy acquired a higher ritual status. Otherwise, definitely the Paditya dosha would have been ascribed to any scholar who studied it. But there is a story about Parameshwara who used to lie down and watch on the shore of the sea sometimes, and also on the shore of Nila mostly. And often he was fed by the people on the coast or people on the side of the river. And having eaten food of such people, he was excommunicated. That is the story. But I don't think it is true. That could be a later episode. If he were excommunicated, he could not have continued as a great astronomer mathematician. He could not have trained his two sons, Damodara and Govinda. And Nilakanta Swamiyaji could not have become a student of Damodara. How could Nilakanta Swamiyaji become a disciple of the son of an excommunicated? This is quite contradictory. Therefore, I think there is a lot of exaggeration about the episode of Parameshwara. Teaching and learning higher mathematics by non-Nampudiris is a clear indication of pure academic interest. We have Shankara Warrior, Achyuta Pisharidi, and Achyuta Pisharidi was a teacher of Melpattur Narayanapati. It's a clear indication that mathematics had already transcended the jati limitations. It had become an independent imperative. Like that, Achyuta Pisharidi was Jeshtadeva's student. That, of course, we can understand because it's very clear. By the time Brahmadattan Nambudiri or Jeshtadeva, mathematics had become an independent field of attraction for people with genuine interest, and they had pleasure in taking that mathematics to whoever found it intellectually challenging. Some of these scholars were driven by the norm that knowledge should be delivered to those with genuine curiosity to learn, irrespective of caste barriers. Their own love for exponential rise of knowledge must have prompted them to do so. Now, we do not know really whether the case of hereditary specialization evident in the case of everybody, except in the case of Parameshwara, we don't find the knowledge transfer to the next generation. It's very clear because everybody will not be able to understand mathematics. It requires a given synaptic process in the brain. Everybody may be having neurons, but neurons alone will not do. Everybody will not be able to do painting or will not be able to do sculpting. So a father may be a good mathematician, but the son need not be. That could be one of the reasons why it did not become a hereditary factor. I am concluding. Now, my main argument is that initially mathematics was a socio-ritually driven exercise. It was the socio-economic and politico-cultural compulsion that necessitated exponential growth of mathematical astronomy. Soon pure academic curiosity became the motor. The kind of higher mathematics that starts with Madhava and advances through Nilakanta to Jeshtadeva had no role in determining auspicious moments in everyday life. For Tithi and fixing muhurtams and so on, calculus is not required. And an extended arithmetics would do actually. Therefore, we cannot say that ordinary people's ritual compulsion was acting as one of the stimuli for mathematical growth. They don't follow this Parahita Ganitam, the traditional practice. They have this the advanced techniques. Some of the old people know how to understand planetary positions and so on, and they also believe that auspicious things should be performed on moments mathematically understood. The muhurtam should be fixed with mathematical precision. And they pity that outside Alathiur, in various Brahmana gramas, people are certainly observing rituals. Good things they are doing, but they have no knowledge of Muhurtam. That a statement is quite interesting because they always had some kind of precedence over the practices of other villages. Indeed, it was necessary for predicting eclipses, which was a ritualistic need, but inseparable from the materialistic, and therefore, Namburi's officiating Vedic sacrifices must have used it. Although these are giants in mathematical astronomy, I have a feeling that this knowledge was democratized. They were not able to improve it upon. If Melpattur Narayana or Bhattacharya wanted to learn that, or if Achyuta Prasad was able to, educate a Brahmin, it meant it was a requirement, it was not just a passion. And people sustained knowledge and practiced it. But the interesting thing is that people who knew series, they also used the Kali Sankhya and so on. For example, Nilaganda gives a Kali Vakyam to indicate that I have completed my text on such and such date. That means Parahita Genitam was part of the cultural practices, even when they were able to think differently. Thank you very much.
Are there any doubts or questions? Dr. Gurukul.
Yes. One question. It's a very interesting lecture. I really liked it. And I was wondering, what about geometry? Because mathematics was a Vedanga right from the beginning, it was a Vedanga. It is mentioned by Devargis also. So we have got the Shulba Sutras, the chords, and geometry. The word geometry itself is related to the surface level and calculations. And during the Vedic period itself, calculations were made on the basis of chords, how to draw circles, how to inscribe a square, in that how to convert a triangle into a similar structure like that. So if you look at mathematics, x-axis is this type of abstract calculation, but y-axis would be geometry. And without spherical geometry, you cannot conceive of structures like the solar system and other things. So I would suggest that this was also cultivated, especially because in sacrifices, you have to build the altar on the basis of the bricks, ishtagas, which is a long history. So elaborate calculations were done. So these were all the arsenals by means of which the Keralite mathematicians progressed and made accurate calculations and mapped the celestial, this kind of, had a model, something like that. Yeah. So I would like to know what will be your attitude to geometry, trigonometry, and allied disciplines, yes, which were also very much well known to these great stalwarts. And I would also join with you because I believe that there was a Kerala school of mathematics. A lot of paradigms are Kerala specific, which you may not find in Jaina mathematics, for example. There are many other approaches to mathematics in India, like the Kadabayati. So I would, not because I'm a Keralite, but I would think that there is something like a Kerala school.
I was referring to the hardcore logic of it, which is a discovery, and therefore there is universality about it. Otherwise, in the expression, communication, mode of communication, and so on, there could be culturally contingent features. And if you identify such externalities, certainly one can talk about Kerala school. Otherwise, Kerala epistemology of trigonometry wouldn't be possible. It's a single kind. The reason is it's ultimately discovery of a relationship and then also constitution of a technique to access that. That is universal. It's only in that sense I was saying that there wasn't anything called the Kerala School of Mathematics. It's production of calculus, and then calculus developed elsewhere. It need not be a process of diffusion. It can be an independent thing also. Maybe there could be diffuse intimations about what was going on elsewhere. The Arabs and Jesuits and so on might have carried information. But any trader wouldn't understand calculus. Any trader wouldn't be able to communicate the Europeans about calculus that easily. But various things could be communicated. I don't think Europeans really got these theorems from here. They might have certainly got intimations about it, but the discovery could be independent. As Nilakanda did not go to Europe, or Nilakanda's technique or thing did not reach Tycho Brahe. Tycho Brahe's was certainly a result of observation. Otherwise, Nilakanda and Tycho Brahe need not necessarily be stopping at that point. That is the point of maximum thoroughness one could acquire at the level of observation. At that level, knowledge is empirically given. Whereas Madhava's discovery of series, it was not just the empirically given, it was certainly a discovery, major discovery. How did he do that? One doesn't know. But extension of proof was possible, which Jyeshtadeva did. Your first, I forgot that.
Geometry.
Geometry, yes. Geometry is very much there. And I inquired about the method of doing it. My curiosity was about a compass. The instrument box that we use in the schools and then compass. What could have been the device used by the old people? They used a palm leaf with different points. With the style, they would hold the palm leaf, and there are several dots on this pin. They would be able to draw by turning this. Hold a style, and then with the help of another one, and with various dots, you can complete the circle. So palm leaf was the major instrument used by these people, and arcs and arc tangents and so on. Thorough drawing was there. They extensively did the drawing, without which it was not possible. Now, trigonometry is impossible without the graphic representation. Trigonometry has a spatiality recreated in the palm leaf, and they certainly did it extensively. We do not know really the details, but it seems that Nilakanta Swamiyaji had developed various instrumentalities for these observations and so on. And Madhava certainly, the series just cannot be developed without doing quite a lot of algebraic exercises. Symbolic mathematics was important for representing trigonometric functions, and then comprehending trigonometric functions, geometric drawing was inevitable. So that way, these things certainly travel together.
Just a brief question.
I have a lot of questions to ask, but there is no time. I would rather say that the central point of your lecture today is whether discoveries come out of external dynamics or by internal, impetus. I would like to take issue with you on that because I would rather believe that it is the internal compulsions which result in great discoveries very often, although there are many examples of externalities coming in. But I won't waste time on that. My question is rather simple. At what point of time did India come to the conclusion that the center of the solar system is not the Earth but the Sun? And at what point of historic time? That is one. And the second is, I have heard that there is a biography of Pythagoras which says that he came to India and learned his theorem from here. How far is that true? And the third one, our great